Hello, and welcome to another episode of Finding Mr. Height, the podcast. I'm your host, Allie Jackson, and I'm bringing you my positive and practical approach to dating, relationships, and a whole lot else about life based on my experience throughout my life. Thank you for being here. So this week's episode is going to be listener questions. I'm trying to do listener questions episodes a little bit more frequently, probably not fully once a month, but a little bit more frequently, because I have such great questions from you all, both through the question form, which you can find at findingmrheight.com/podcast, or also you can go directly to it at tinyurl.com/fmhpodqs. That is in the show notes as well, if you forget. Both through that and through like longer DMs that I get on Instagram that don't fit in the AMA box. I put those aside as well for these listener questions. I get so many good ones. And so I want to do that more regularly and just, chat with you guys about what's going on in your lives. So we're going to do that today. But before we do that, we have much to catch up on. Last Saturday was the Finding Mr. Height FMH, that Finding Mr. Height is FMH. It is early, y'all. The 5-year anniversary party of the pod, the listener appreciation party. Thank you so much to everybody who came out. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I had such a good time at the event. Let me say that first. I had major social anxiety that day. Like, I have to be so for real with you. I had major social anxiety. And I don't really know why. I think, well, maybe I do know why. I think this was the first event in a long, long time that I've hosted just me. I did one meetup to like a dating event, like a dating show, gosh, years and years ago. This might have been before I even had the podcast. Maybe not. I don't remember. Years and years and years ago. And beyond that, I've done live shows with Erica, obviously. And before each of those, I was a nervous wreck. But Erica is a pro. She does this for a living, right? So like that made me so much more calm and confident. This really scared me in a way that I didn't anticipate. Like, I didn't expect myself to feel that way on Saturday leading into the event. Like, oh my God, I would never have done this, obviously, but like the should I cancel thought like came into my head. I'm like, what if no one comes? What if it's terrible? What if I panicked and worked through that. Obviously did not cancel, and I would never have canceled. But I didn't expect that level of social anxiety. And the event itself, truly, I had a great time. I felt really awkward though. Like, I really did. I was like, in hindsight, like if I ever do this again, maybe for the 10-year anniversary, who knows, I will have some sort of like signage that's like, hey, we're over in this area. Cause I wasn't sure where in the bar we were going to be when I booked the space. I booked like a few tables of their main bar area. And so one of the things that I didn't anticipate, that in hindsight, it was like, it would have been good to have like a sign, is as people were coming into the bar, I wasn't sure if they were there for our party or if they were there for one of the numerous other events that were happening in the bar. And I ended up literally walking up to two separate pairs of women being like, hi, like, are you here for the FMH party? And they looked at me like I was fucking crazy. So after that, I was like a little bit gun shy. So I apologize if I was like weird and awkward when you came in. But I honestly had such a good time after I kind of like worked through that. It was very small. Like, would I have loved it if there were like a ton of people there and it was this massive thing? Of course, right? It was small. That meant though that I got to spend time talking to each person that was there. And I really, really enjoyed that. And that the goal was for me to talk to listeners and to, tell them that I appreciate them, and was able to have the bar tab going for pretty much the entire party, and had like appetizer platters. And like, it just was, it was what I really wanted in terms of being able to show my appreciation to the listeners. But I'm not going to lie, I did not anticipate that level of nerves. And I got such sweet messages from people who were there afterwards. Thank you. And I want to do something like that again, like not on that scale in terms of like, the bar tab and the appetizers and the whole thing. Like, obviously it wouldn't be an anniversary party, but I was talking to a couple listeners who messaged me after the event, and they were like, it was so great to connect with other listeners in the city and like, form community and whatever and bond. And I think a couple of them like hung out after the party ended. But like we would love to do that more. That was something I'm thinking about. And I think I will attempt not to put so much pressure on myself in those situations because those would be much more casual, obviously. And this was very casual, but that's the recap. Thank you again to everybody who came. I really had a great time once I like got out of my head. But it's interesting. Like once I am talking to someone, I love it. Like I love one-on-one conversations. I love being in groups. Like I love, participating in all of that. And I get a lot of energy from those situations once I'm in them. What is hard for me, maybe some of you out there can relate, is the entrance into the situation. Like when I used to go to singles mixers, in-person events, that kind of thing, walking up to someone cold is so hard for me. And I get like awkward and weird. And I don't like that about myself very much. So I tend to avoid those types of situations. It was one of the things that was hard when I was doing the like 2-person a month in-person events prior to meeting Skyline, when I was like trying to date more in person. Well, that was one of the things that was really hard. It was almost like exposure therapy for that fear of mine and for that like awkward girl inside of me that is like scared to walk up to people. And somehow that translated to an event that I was hosting. Like, why would I feel awkward to walk up to people? Well, except for the fact that I walked up to people that weren't there for the event. But I just appreciate everyone who came so much. Thank you. It was lovely. We had a little Mexico City reunion as well. There were a few gals from a Mexico City trip who've been on more trips since and have some trips planned this year with FMH. It was just really lovely to be able to connect in that way. And a few of my friends surprised me there, which was nice. Skyline was always going to be there. Cindy was always going to be there, but a few of my other friends came. So they had seen it on my Instagram, and that was really lovely. So yeah, it just was great. So thank you to everybody who was there. And who knows, maybe we'll do stuff like this in the future. I definitely do want to do little meetups and stuff in other cities when I have like the time to do that. Like the next time I'm in San Diego. I would love to do something like that, which I haven't really done before. So that was last weekend. Also last week, we had February's secret date night, surprise date night. Skyline calls it secret date night. I call it surprise date night. And it was Skyline's turn to plan. I had absolutely no idea what he was planning. Like usually I have some kind of an inkling, either based on the attire that he has requested or the location, like the area that we're going to, or sometimes there will be something that we have very recently discussed. Like, for example, when we did the picnic in Central Park and then we rented the boats. First of all, we were meeting like near Central Park, but we had also recently discussed that I've never done those boats. So that was like kind of going in my mind. This time, I had no idea. The date attire that he said was like regular date night, nice, but not super fancy. He was coming from work. And I knew what he was wearing that morning. I knew he wasn't crazy dressed up. And we were meeting like at the Broadway Lafayette subway station, like kind of not near anything notable. Well, near a lot of things notable, but not near only one thing notable, if that makes sense. So I had no idea. And we went to dinner at this like super, super nice French place that could have felt more fancy, but like honestly had like a really relaxed vibe. It was really, really good. It's called Chateau Royale. Definitely more of a like special occasion, not like your run of the mill, when normal Wednesday night dinner. Because it is a little bit more on the expensive side. So good. It was one of those places where they do martinis at the table. And we had ordered glasses of wine. And then we saw our server serve martinis to a table near us before he had gotten our wine. And he brought like a bar cart out and served the martinis tableside. And we were like, hold up, sir. We'll do that instead. So we ended up getting martinis. And they were awesome. They were icy cold. Icy cold. A dirty gin martini is like one of my favorite drinks that I only discovered in the last couple of years. Gin has always been one of my favorite spirits, if not my favorite spirit. But I only recently discovered that I really love an extra dirty martini. It was like 2 years ago, maybe. So, anywho, they do an amazing one. Skyline loves a Vesper martini. They made a really good one for him, apparently. I didn't try it because I do not like Vespers. And that was really, really cool. The food was awesome. Our server recommended some appetizers for us, and we ended up getting this prawn dish that was like almost like a shrimp cocktail, but like a little fancier, but like big prawns, lightly poached, like a little lemon with this aioli. Oh my God. Certainly the best thing that we ate. I got duck à l'orange, which was really, really good. Skyline got a filet. Anywho, this restaurant's great. Like I said, it is expensive, so more of a special occasion type affair. Also, we were like the only ones in there because we were eating at 6 p.m. It was us and that one other table. So like that was kind of cool. And then he was like, okay, we're walking to our next thing. And we start walking into the West Village. I'm like, are we going to a comedy show? Like, where are we going? And we stop at this nearly unmarked door that has a line. I'm like, where are we? And we go into this underground jazz club called Smalls. And I had forgotten, obviously he had not, that a couple of months ago, I was saying that we hadn't been to a jazz show in quite a long time. It was one of our very first surprise dates, and that I would love to go to one soon. I totally forgot that. He did not. That's what we did. And it was so fun. It was so fun. The band was really, really cool. They were playing a mix of like original and like covers of things. They did a cover of Josh Groban's You Raise Me Up, which is my mom's favorite song. And they started playing and I was like, is this Josh Groban? It was so good. It was like obviously a jazz version cover of Josh Groban. Like it was so good. And we ended up buying a poster from them afterwards. And it just was like super, super fun and like really cool to be at this like little underground place. What was interesting is that so like doors open, I think like 30 minutes before the show. Dinner took a little bit longer than we had expected or he had expected. So we got there maybe 15 minutes before the show. We were not expecting to have good seats. It's first come, first serve. But the way that it's set up, there's like rows of chairs, but then they also have a bar on the side. As you know, sitting at a bar is my dream scenario. Like I eat dinner. I want to eat dinner at a bar. I want to sit at a bar. Like I'll pick a bar 10 times out of 10 over a table for 2 people, 3 max. More than that, absolutely not. 10 times out of 10, I'm picking the bar, right? We come in and no one has sat at the bar. And we were able to get seats that were at the end of the bar, right near the stage, like 3 feet from the stage, basically as if we had been in the second row of seats. And now we have places to put our food and our drinks. Like, well, we didn't get food, but like we have places to put our drinks. They have I want to say 1 drink minimum, which is better than some of the comedy shows, like comedy rooms in that area. It was super fun. We had a great time. And then the night after that, we went to a happy hour that was hosted by that double dating app that I've mentioned. And crazy coincidence. So I walk in, I like see the people that we've been on dates with. And I think I've mentioned this before. One of them turned out to be the founder of the app. We like went out with her and she was like, by the way, I founded this. And she was talking to this guy and she was like, oh, this is my friend. And he and I shook hands. And as I'm shaking his hand, I'm like, I know you. Did you go to insert New York City high school here? He is one of my best friend, like my sister, Rachel, who I lived with for years and years. She went to school in New York City. He's one of her close friends that I haven't seen since she left New York, which was almost 10 years ago now. Crazy coincidence. I was like, oh my God, like, how are you? So then we're catching up. And so then I asked him, I was like, oh, like, how do you know the girl who, founded this app, who's running this happy hour? And he goes, oh, she knows Christina, who's another person that went to their high school, who was in my best friend's wedding with me. Like, I know her very well. And it turns out that the girl running the happy hour had just been visiting Christina in London and was telling me about her trip to London to visit her friend. All the while I know this friend. I was in a wedding with this friend. Just the world is so small. New York City is so small. And yet my best friend, Rachel and her, like they've never seen each other before. I sent pictures, like never. And they have all of these connections. This was one of those like, damn, the world is small kind of moments. And the happy hour was really fun. We met a couple other couples that we exchanged numbers with to like go out with. It's just been a really fun community. Like our goal was to expand our social circle a little bit and meet new people. Those two phrases mean the same thing. And we've really done that. It's been great. Like we've met now 2 couples that we've become actually friends with that we've gone out with a couple of times each. And now more couples that we met at this happy hour. So like that's just been really cool. It's been really fun. And then other things going on this week. On the Patreon last week, I had my friend Ashley on, who was my roommate after Rachel. Ashley and I lived together here for a year. She's now one of my close friends. I was in her wedding. She's a dear, dear, dear friend to me. She lives in Chicago now. And we don't talk that often, as, you know, long distance friendships do. And when we do catch up, it's like, oh my God, this is like no time has passed kind of thing. And so I was talking to her recently. She's on like a self-employment journey as well. She left corporate world a little bit ago and is kind of like in a different space than I am. She's in marketing, but she's like going into sort of a consultancy thing like I am. So we've had a lot to talk about that. And she's recently started to kind of like post some things, you know, in that space and explore kind of like LinkedIn in that way. We've been like had a lot to talk about in that way. I just love talking to her. It's so easy. We laugh a lot. Like it's great. And I was talking to her about how one of the things that I really miss about having a co-host is that girl talk, and especially a co-host that I'm friends with. Like it's different talking to a full stranger, right? And both of my co-hosts are people that I knew before being co-hosts. But I miss that. Like I've talked a lot about how there's reasons why I don't want to bring a like single and dating co-host onto the pod, and like reasons why I want to continue to do this pod solo at this moment. Never say never for change in the future. But one of them is because I don't have any friends currently that are interested in joining a public podcast. I was talking to Ashley about like missing that girl talk, and we decided to do an episode of the Patreon together. So she came on the Patreon last week. It was super fun. We chatted a lot about kind of the genesis of me and Skyline getting more serious and kind of some of the conversations that we had about marriage and moving in together and marriage, engagement, like all of that. One of the things that I have found a little difficult in my solo podcasting journey is what I'm doing right now, monologuing. It's like, I really like that back and forth. It's one of the things that I liked so much about having a co-host, right? And we got to do that. And like, that was just really, really fun. And I got to hear her perspective on, you know, where she's at in life and kind of her going through that journey in moving in with her now husband and getting engaged and, you know, he moved to New York originally and then they were dating and then they moved back to Chicago together. And it was just awesome. I just had the greatest time talking to her. So that was super fun. And hopefully I'm recording this now, having not released it yet on the Patreon. So I do not know what the patrons thought about it, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Before we get to listener questions, this week's media mention. This video came up on my FYP a few days ago, and I immediately bookmarked it. It was about a concept called high involvement, low attachment. And the TikTok account that I saw it from was at Mother of a Dilemma with periods in between. I will put this in the show notes. She talks about, I'd never seen her account before, but she talks about the decision to have kids or not, like very similar to the child free or not conversation that we had on the pod recently, and that, you know, I have in my life in general. Came up on my FYP, and she was talking about applying this concept of high involvement, low attachment to making the decision to have kids. And I love this concept. It is what I have advised people to do, and what a lot of people, like Talia from Dating Intentionally, talks about this in dating. But I've never used these words before. And these words like really crystallized it for me. Because yes, you could apply it to the child-free or not decision, kids or not decision, but it also applies to so much else. And what it is this mindset that's focused on maximum effort. Like high involvement means actively working on the thing that you want. In her case, like in the case of the video, the thing that you want is clarity, right? Actively working with energy and purpose, and like you're actively trying to create this life that you want, or this thing that you want, or gain the clarity that you're looking for towards the decision you're trying to make. Like whatever the thing is, you're actively working towards it. You're doing as much as you can in this state of high intention to achieve whatever that goal is. And again, the goal doesn't have to be something tangible. The goal can be clarity on a decision. So I'm thinking also another example in my life recently was my decision on whether or not to leave corporate. Interestingly, I've gotten more questions than ever in the last, I would say, 3 or 4 months from listeners about career decisions, not necessarily deciding to leave corporate and work for themselves, but just generally about not being satisfied in their career or being actively unhappy or wondering if they should make a change, feeling like they've hit a ceiling, whatever the case is. Having this sort of big decision that they feel like they need to make regarding their career. And I really used, in hindsight, a high involvement, low attachment approach to making my decision to leave corporate. And you can just apply it to so much. So to continue down the path, you're in this state of high intention. You are actively pursuing whatever the goal is that you're applying this to. You're putting a lot of energy into it. You're trying different things. You're, whatever that thing is. However, you have low attachment to the outcome. And a lot of dating coaches, Talia included, also Erica Etten from A Little Nudge, talk about NATO, dating not attached to outcome. And this is a perfect sort of framework for that. It's releasing the need for a very specific outcome. That's not easy at all. It is not easy to actively work towards something you want while releasing your attachment to the outcome of that thing. In the video on TikTok, she gives the example of a finger trap like we used to have when we were kids that you would get at carnivals or whatever, where when you put your fingers into it, the harder you pull them apart, the harder it is to get it off. It is only when you release your fingers towards each other that you are able to get them out of this finger trap, right? We've all been there. And that is really analogous to being so rigidly focused on a particular outcome of something that you're locked in to that outcome, and it makes it harder to achieve the outcome. In the case of this video, the example, you're so focused and attached to the outcome of making this decision rather than dedicating your energy to the journey and the process. And that, like I said, is not easy. It is not easy to do, but it is applicable to so much in life. And I think that it really hones in on this notion that, I think a lot of people, to put it another way, I think a lot of people think they really truly believe the saying, it happens when you least expect it, right? And we hear that applied to our love life a lot, but I think I also see people seeing effort as a bad thing in other areas of life of oh, you're trying really hard for that thing. Hell yeah, I am. I want that thing, right? Of course I'm going to try hard for it. I want it. That's fine. It is okay to go after things you want. But I think the low attachment to the outcome part is so important to not end up consumed by the effort. And it's easier said than done. I mean, there's a lot of strategies in order to do that, but it got me down this path of sort of exploring and expanding on this topic. And I've looked up podcast episodes I want to listen to and things like that. So that is this week's media mention. And now let's get into some of your questions. Okay, I got 2 questions that are very similar in theme, but with slightly different issues. I'm going to read both of them and then kind of answer them simultaneously. The first one is actually from a guy, which I call out because I almost never receive questions from men. Only 5% of you listening right now are men, so it makes sense. But this one is from a guy. He says, "Hi, Allie. I've been on Hinge for a few months, and my biggest block is the opening message. I'll match with someone, genuinely like their profile, but then I just freeze. I'll spend so much time trying to think of the perfect thing to say that I either send something super generic or I don't send anything at all. My friends say I'm overthinking it, but I don't know how to turn that off. How do you stop psyching yourself out over a first message when you actually care about making a good impression?" Homeboy walked directly into this week's media mention of high involvement, low attachment, because I think we can apply that here. But first, let me read you this other question, which is from a woman, similar but different. She says, her name is Allie also, by the way. She says, Hi, Allie. Hee hee. I've been online dating on and off for about 2 years, and I've noticed that I only tend to swipe yes when I immediately know what I would say to someone. If nothing comes to mind right away, I just pass. I've started to wonder if I'm missing out on people I could actually be interested in just because their profile didn't hand me an obvious conversation starter. Is that too high of a bar to set for swiping, or is it a reasonable filter? So both of these people are having opening message issues. And the reason I think that this ties in so much to the high involvement, low attachment theory is because I see so much in my dating coaching, the opening message being such a struggle, especially for men, actually, but such a struggle because people that I'm meeting with, obviously, if they are pursuing dating coaching, they have a high involvement approach to their dating life, right? So they want to do a good job. They want to be highly involved. They are doing everything they can to achieve this goal of meeting somebody that they have. But one of the issues becomes if they also have high attachment to that outcome, then they are putting so much pressure on swiping on people, making that swipe decision or like decision or whatever the case may be on the app that you're on the message that they're going to send, on the back and forth of the conversation. They're putting so much pressure on each step of the process that they're sort of like, what's that phrase? Losing the forest for the trees. They're getting too myopically focused on each individual step. They need to zoom out and they need to detach themselves from the outcome of each individual swipe or each individual conversation so that they can enjoy the process more. And that is really hard to do as a highly involved person, as somebody who has decided that they want to make dating a priority, whether or not that you're somebody that's like working with a coach or not. If you are somebody who has decided, I want to make dating a priority, I'm going to intentionally be on dating apps, swipe intentionally, send intentional messages. If you are that person, it can be much harder to detach yourself from the outcome. So, getting into these questions that they've asked, right? I see so often in the coaching that I do that people are, first of all, people are not crafting profiles that make it easy to reply to them. So, first of all, if you have a dating app profile out there, please, right now, go look at your profile with the lens of what would I say to me? Show it to people. Ask other people, especially people that are in your target demographic. What would you say to my profile? Like, what thing would you pick up on and ask me about or comment on or whatever it is? And if they can't immediately think of something, I would revamp your profile to add in something that is an immediate, hey, let me ask them about this. Because I see so many profiles that people have clearly put intention into. These are not blank profiles, but where there aren't things that are easily asked about. I'm talking about the kinds of profiles, especially on Hinge, where there's no bio, where the person has answered prompts in a way where they think they're doing something, but they've actually been pretty generic. Like, I'm looking for somebody who's kind and compassionate. All right, what am I supposed to say to that? I am? Like that stuff, right? So before I get into the other side of it, I just want to say that because I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult their own profile is to comment on. Moving on from that though. You don't need the perfect thing to say. You just don't. Like you don't want to just say hey, and I think that's where this one guy is coming from where he's like, well, if I can't think of this like crazy, really funny or super specific thing to say, then I end up just being like, yo girl, what's up? That's not good. Obviously, that would be especially bad, but like saying just hey is not great. But you don't need the most perfect, most funny, most amazing opening message. You just need something to start the conversation. And if somebody does not have something in their profile that you can really pick up on, that is where it's great to have a couple things in your back pocket that you can say. So, like one of the things that I used to say is marry, fuck, kill, and then I would do things. So, like for a while, I was doing pancakes, waffles, French toast. Or I would say, like, big question for you, what's your favorite appetizer? These are not hard-hitting, serious questions, right? And they can be applied to literally anyone, no matter what's on their profile, but they open the door to a conversation. And for me, I would get to see if somebody could like be a little silly with me and have a little bit of a back and forth. And then we move away from waffles, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. So that would be my advice to the first guy, right? Like, You don't need to say something about their profile if there's nothing to say about their profile, but you should say something more than hey. And that is where it is nice to have a couple of things in your back pocket to talk about. To the second woman who is worried that if nothing comes to mind, she just passes, like if she only knows what she would immediately say to someone, I would say, yes, you are potentially missing out on people that you could actually be interested in just because their profile doesn't hand you an obvious conversation starter, like you said. I am not advising that you swipe right on people who have clearly put in no effort to their profile, right? You can swipe on those people. I wouldn't say don't swipe on them, but I'm talking about the profiles where they've done something. There's just nothing that you immediately pick up on. Again, have something in your back pocket. And also, back to my point about how your opening message does not need to be perfect, I always advise the first thing that comes to mind, provided that thing is not like super fucking weird, right? The first thing that comes to mind, send that, because it doesn't have to be perfect. So like as you're going through, let's say that you see that they, really love coffee, right? As you're going through, you see, oh, they really love coffee, and maybe you just got a new coffee maker. Great. You're like, oh my God, I just got this great new coffee maker. It's changed my life. Something like that. Not super involved. That is not a groundbreaking statement. It's just a conversation starter to get you talking, because the point is to get talking to then go on a date. The point is not to have the most interesting conversation you've ever had on this dating app. That's not the point. That's not the goal. So on that note, if you are out there and you have a great example of a question that you keep in your back pocket if you can't think of anything to say, let me know. Send me a DM, comment on Spotify, whatever it is. Comment on Patreon if you're a patron. I want to hear what those examples are. I'll read some of them if you submit them on the next pod. All right. Our next question is from Meredith. Meredith says, hi, Allie. I just went on 3 dates with the guy I met on Bumble, and it felt like we had real chemistry. After the third date, he texted me saying he, quote, didn't feel a romantic connection, but that I was amazing and he'd love to be friends. I wasn't devastated, but I was confused because the dates felt genuinely fun and flirty, not friend zone energy at all. Here's my question, though. A mutual friend recently told me he's now dating someone who looks and acts a lot like his ex. Do I read into that or just move on? I'm not hung up on him, but it made me start questioning whether I'm even his type, and now I'm spiraling a little bit about whether I should be changing something about myself to be more dateable. Whoa. That last bit. New. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way. First of all, I'm annoyed that your mutual friend told you this, because why? I think this comes back to one of the recent podcast episodes that we had with April Beyer, matchmaker, and we were talking about relatability. There can be a date that feels very fun and perhaps flirty to one person, where the other person is having fun and maybe flirting a little bit. Like I have had flirty energy conversations with people that I consider truly platonic friends, because for me, that flirty energy does not necessarily have romantic intent, does not necessarily have like sexual intent, right? Flirty energy to me doesn't need those things. So I think it is totally possible to have super fun, what one person might be perceiving as flirty interactions with somebody, and not have one person feel like that person is just a friend. Like I think that is fully possible, because I think there's a difference between that like chemistry and banter and feeling connected to somebody. Like your date said that he didn't feel a romantic connection, which is vague, right? But also it is wording that I have used myself and advised to use, because I don't think you need to be more specific than that if you just don't want to date someone. Like there's not a specific reason, right? You're just like not into it. I think that's totally fine and good phrasing to use. Please, please, please do not read into what your mutual friend said about the person that he is now dating, because I don't know what you would read into that. Like he said he didn't feel a romantic connection to you for whatever reason. He might not even know the reason. Like there have been plenty of dates that I've gone on where I didn't feel a romantic connection, but it wasn't because of one specific thing. It's not like I would be like, oh, he's not enough like my ex, or, oh, he's not this enough, or he's not that enough, or whatever. There are plenty of dates I've been on where I'm just like, he's not it. Like I had a good time with this guy, but he's not my guy. And that's as much as I'm able to put a finger on it. So I don't think reading into this for you is going to help you at all, because you are already moved on, hopefully. Like, this person didn't want to date you. That sucks, right? Like you said, you weren't devastated, but you were confused. That sucks. But that person is not the arbiter of whether you are dateable. Just because you are not this one person's cup of tea of who they wanted to date, that does not make you not dateable at all. And so what if you're not his type also, right? Like, you were saying, like, it made you start questioning whether you're even his type. Maybe not. But that doesn't make you not dateable. That doesn't make you not dateable at all. Like, think about all the people who aren't your type or who you have not been wanting to date in the past. Those people are not by nature undateable just because you personally didn't want to date them. And that is hard to remember in reverse. It is much easier to know that about other people. It is much harder to do it for yourself, and remember that for yourself, and not be so hard on yourself about your own dateability or your own worth because somebody didn't want to date you. It brings me back to this question of whether I would rather that somebody I date somebody who looks exactly like me afterwards or nothing like me afterwards. Personally, I would rather just not know who they're dating afterwards if I was like upset about the breakup. But I've had both scenarios, and I actually think I would rather the person date someone who looks nothing like me. I've had the scenario where they were dating a person who looked exactly like me, and I remember thinking like, oh, so it was me. You do like this, you just didn't like me, which is not what you should be taking away either. This was me being hard on myself. But that comes back to that question, right? All this to say, please do not read into this. I would ask that mutual friend, if I were you, not to give you more updates on this dude, because I don't think they're helpful at all. And please, please, please do not change something about yourself just because one person wasn't into you. Please. Okay, last question for this week. This question is anonymous. Hi, Allie. Your episode on people pleasing hit me so hard. I'm 30 years old, and I grew up in a household where keeping the peace was survival, and I carried that into every relationship I've ever had. I'm currently in therapy, which is helping, but I'm struggling with the in-between phase where I can see my patterns clearly, but haven't fully broken them yet. It's actually made dating harder because now I'm hyper aware of every time I people please, but still can't seem to stop in the moment. Does it get easier? How do you actually change behavior when the awareness is there, but the habit is so deep? You, listener, dear listener, have hit on the hardest part of change, and that is that in-between. It is so much easier when you are unaware of your patterns. It's not good, don't get me wrong, but it's easier, right? Like when you have a toxic pattern or when you have just a pattern that's not serving you, it is a lot easier when you're not aware of it because then you don't have to deal with it. And again, that's not a good thing, but it's easier. The hardest part, and then obviously it does get easier, to answer your question directly. It is also easier once you are past that pattern and you can see things that would have triggered you previously, or you can catch yourself about to enter a pattern and stop. And so that's easier, but the in-between, so hard because you're not only working on this thing, but you're also probably being hard on yourself. And that is the first thing that I want you to try to address, is being so hard on yourself, because that's going to make it worse. So like, now you are hyper aware of every time you go to people please, and you can't seem to stop in the moment because you're not there yet, right? Like you haven't done that work yet. You haven't finished rather that work to get to the other side where you can stop the behavior that you don't want. But you're watching it, and it's almost like you're floating above your body. Like, no, 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 no. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And then if you are anything like me or people that I know that have been in this pattern, you are kicking yourself afterwards. Why the fuck did I do that? I've been there in various different patterns. The first step that I think will really help you, in addition, obviously, to the work that you're doing in therapy, which I commend you for, the first step is to stop beating yourself up about being in a work in progress. That's really hard. It is so easy to say, well, I know it's a problem. Like, to think your way through it, right? Like, that's an issue I have in therapy all the time, is that I want to think my way through things. I want to be like, well, I know this is an issue, so I should be over here now because I was here, I was at point A, and I know I need to be at point B, so let's just go to B. Why do we have to go? Why do we have to journey there? Can't we just be at B? Like, that is so hard, to have patience with yourself that you are working on this. And so that's my first thing. The second thing is that just because you can't stop a behavior in the moment doesn't mean you can't continue to modify it later. What I mean by that is, like, let's say there's a discussion that you're having with someone. Like, I'll just give you an example of people pleasing. Let's say there's a discussion you're having with someone that you're dating and something upsets you. And in the moment, when it upsets you, you don't say anything because you're going into people pleasing mode. You're going into, like, let's smooth everything over. What we talked about in that episode, actually a form of control, right? I'm going to try to control this outcome and avoid a conflict. I don't want to deal with a conflict. I want everything to be easy peasy, smooth sailing. So I'm going to push down how I'm feeling about this in the moment and acquiesce to the other person. You don't want to do that anymore, right? Like, you want to be able to stand your ground and say when things bother you, etc. But you did. In the moment, you did. That doesn't mean that you can't bring it up later. And I don't say this to be like, you should always be bringing up things that bother you later, because it's great if you can address things in the moment eventually, if appropriate. Sometimes situations aren't appropriate to talk about in that moment. But just because you push something down in a moment doesn't mean that you can't have a discussion with your partner or the person that you're dating later about it. And that, I think, is a really good way to progress towards the end goal of not doing it at the time. So we're not seeing it so black and white. We're not seeing it as either I do people please or I don't. We're instead seeing it as sometimes I do. And if something is truly bothering me and I didn't say anything about it, I can bring it up later. And that's okay. And you can be vulnerable with the person you're dating about this and say, this really bothered me in the moment, and I felt uncomfortable about bringing it up because I didn't want to start something, but I'm still thinking about it and I'd love to talk about it. I think that is a really lovely way to deepen a connection with somebody, is to be vulnerable about the fact that you are working on this thing. And hopefully they are able to, if you continue to date them, see progress in you towards this thing where you're not constantly bringing things up later and not talking about them in the moment, because that will get the other person eventually worried that you're always just pushing things down and acquiescing to them when in reality you're mad or you're upset or whatever. Do that too much and don't make progress on it over time. That other person is going to start being impacted in that way. But you're working on it. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I hope that the person that you are dating, whoever, if you're dating different, whatever it is, I hope that they're able to see that for what it is and commend you for that and want you to come to them when these things happen, because they want you to be honest with them and with yourself. So it does get easier, and you can take incremental steps towards it. And I know that you can, and I would love to hear updates maybe from the next time that this happens. With that, thank you again for the questions. As a reminder, you can submit questions directly at tinyurl.com/fmhpodqs or findingmrheight.com/podcast. The link is there too. I always love hearing from you. You can submit anonymously or you can submit with your name. Also, if you want to come on and do a little segment and we can go back and forth, I'm happy to do that too. Somebody recently reached out to me about that. So anything you want, I'm here. Well, not anything, but questions you want to ask, I am here, and we'll talk next week.